Hello, and welcome once again to Honest HR Nitrous. In fact, this is episode number 130 of Honest HR Nitrous. The title of this is called Resumes That Get Results. So we're going to be talking about that today. But this is a live Q&A, so this is your big chance to ask me questions. If you have been a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, you should be able to see a chat box somewhere in the vicinity of my beautiful face. And depending on what device you're watching this on, and you can get in the chat box and ask me some questions, and I will do my best to respond to you. I do not have a pre-prepared thing to talk about. I'm here simply to answer your questions. So whatever you're wondering about, whatever you're struggling with, it's all good. Let me know, and I'll do my best to help you out. That's the whole point. But first, as always, a shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members. You guys are awesome. And my Patreons, you are awesome too. And my super thanks donors, you are awesome 3. And to my viewers and participants, thank you for being here. You guys are great too. Okay, let's dive into this. So the title of this, like I said, was Resumes That Get Results. So if you are trying to apply to jobs in the posted job market, and you're sending in applications in response to these things, and a component of your application is your resume, and you're wondering, how do I write a resume that people will actually single me out and call me back for an interview? That's what this is about. Now, in the past, a lot of different things happened, but one thing that was a thing, definitely in the past, was the idea of having a resume that kind of stays the same. You know, you come up with a resume and you say, okay, this represents me. This is exactly how I want to be portrayed. And then you use that resume, you know, as is, and use it to apply to multiple jobs by sending in that resume, right? I myself did that back in the day. You get a resume writer, you pay them like 4 figures, and they write you a really fancy resume, and then you use that, and you don't want to change it because, you know, you just paid a lot of money for someone to create it, so you don't want to come in there with a crayon and start changing things. So, you know, that's something that did exist, and it still does exist in very limited spaces. But if you're applying to posted jobs and you're trying to send in something that's going to get a response, the name of the game right now is that if you want results, you want responses, callbacks for interviews, then you pretty much have to customize your resume. That's kind of how these things go now. The reason why it works that way now is because a lot of people are doing this. So in order to sort of keep up with them, you know, so they don't pass you up in favor of them, you have to, you know, you have to bring it. You have to be able to produce something and send in something that's as compelling as what these people are doing. And the reason why the people who are customizing their resume and getting better results is because they're a closer fit for the requirements of the job and for all the different things that the job looks for. So that's the idea. So each job is going to have different requirements, and we see this on the job postings when, you know, they have a section that says requirements, or they just say, you know, we're looking for someone who's got this education, this experience, these skills, these traits, right? You know, now if someone sends in a resume that says like, well, the first thing you need to know about me is that I have this education you're looking for. I also have this experience, the exact same thing you're looking for. I also have these skills, coincidentally, the same ones that you said you're looking for. And I have these traits that, once again, fit the job perfectly because you said you were looking for them, right? In addition to that, they don't just have what was posted on the job posting where they said, we're looking for these things. They also, on their resume, say that they have things that it's a pretty good bet that for this particular job, they're going to want someone with these other things they didn't mention on the job posting, right? But your resume then says, oh, you've got this, all of those too, right? So as a result, the people that send in resumes like that, they tend to get selected more often than the people who have a generic resume, and the odds are that their resume doesn't line up with the requirements quite as well, right? If for no other reason, then they're not using the same lingo, right? That's another factor. So, there's more than one way of describing something, certainly in the business world. Like, for example, do you call it a supervisor or do you call it a frontline manager, right? Two terms that mean the same thing, right? And the problem is that if you run your resume through a keyword filter, and this company says they're looking for a frontline manager, and you're applying for it and you say, I have frontline manager experience, right? The problem is if they're saying we're looking for a frontline manager, and you send in a resume that has no mention of that, but you do say that you have experience as a supervisor, your resume gets filtered out because they were looking for the term frontline manager. And that wasn't found anywhere on your resume. Instead, you talked all about being a supervisor. So it's stupid, but that's where the lingo comes in, right? If you're using their terminology, then generally speaking, your resume will be a better match, right? So that's why customization of resumes is very important. Now, so far, I've listed 3 specific things that does. Number 1, closer fit to the requirements. Number 2, closer fit to things that aren't listed as requirements, but they are generally regarded to be things that someone in that role would need to demonstrate. And then number 3, the terminology, the lingo has to match up to what this company uses, right? For a variety of reasons. So that's 3 things certainly that you get when you customize your resume. And that's those 3 things combined to get you better results. You get called much more often. So that's kind of the deal for the resume thing. Get in the chat. This is primarily a Q&A. I'm just here to answer your questions. I really don't have much in the way of anything kind of prepared. I'm just here in the off chance that people want to ask me questions. I do this as an alternative to typing responses in the comment section. Can't type in long written responses to comments. It's just not practical. So I do live streams instead, and then I can respond verbally to everybody's questions. Now it's Friday today, TGIF, so we have less people because most people are in Friday mode, and they don't want to think about job search. They want to think about partying, and that's perfectly understandable. I understand. But if you are here, get in the chat and let me know if you have any questions about careers, job search, or life, the universe, and everything. And I will be only too happy to set you straight. So that's what this is for. In the meantime, check out my courses. There's 2 main courses here that people might be interested in. This is the first one, my Get Hired course. And it contains basically all my advice, all in one place, everything on job search, how to get hired. It teaches you how to get hired in the posted job market for jobs that are posted publicly, like on websites and things like that. And also how to get hired in the hidden job market, which is where 80% of the jobs actually are. And you get that mainly through networking. And if you're an introvert, you can kick ass at this because most networking that gets you in the door can be done over things like social networking. So that's something that even if you're an introvert or you're an extrovert, it doesn't really matter. You can perform really well at this. So it's just a question of understanding what to do. So I teach you all of that stuff. To get access to this course, check out the link in the description box under this live stream. I've got a link to the course itself and also to a video I did that describes the course. So it shows you how it works, what you get, and all that in the interest of transparency. So check that out. While we're still waiting for the first questions to roll on in, I will continue with this. Also, check out this course. This is the other course that people here might be interested in. It's called Write Like a Professional, and basically what this teaches you is higher level communication skills. So everything that I learned in my journey from starting out as a supervisor and going all the way up to a CEO, everything I learned about communication skills in that process, I put into this course. So this can be useful to you if you want to get promoted in a job. Communication skills are the single most important thing you can tack on to what you already have to open doors for you. So check that out. And also, if you're doing the networking thing to get jobs on the hidden job market, this can really help you also. So once again, check out the link in the description box under this live stream for that course. I have a link to the course itself and also to a video describing the course so that you know how it works, what you get, and it's as transparent as possible. I've had a hell of a lot of people take these courses, and I've got a lot of positive feedback. The Get Hired one is the first one I did, and it's the most popular. I think I've had something like, is it 800 people, something like that have taken that. So anyway, check it out. A lot of value there. Basically, for the price of 1 hour of a career coach's time, you can get these courses. So check those out. And as always, get in the chat. That's what we're here for. Okay, while we're waiting, I'm going to do something else kind of fun. We're going to do some of this for fun, and I'm going to run some stuff by ChatGPT, and we're going to react to it, see if it gets it right or not. The thing I like to start with is this. So of all the jobs out there that I could get, or anyone could get, how many of them are posted so that I could see an actual job posting? What percentage? I know that a lot of people don't know about this, especially if you're young, especially if you're starting out. Everybody thinks that the way to get a job is to look for job postings and then respond to them. That's not the case. So the short answer is not many. The most honest, defensible range you'll see from decades of hiring research is this. Roughly 15 to 30% of all jobs are ever publicly posted. So all the jobs you see out there right now are about 15% of all the jobs that are actually available that you could get. About 70 to 80% are never posted at all. So they call those the jobs, those are called hidden jobs. They're there, you can get them. The only problem is that they're not posted publicly. So the way you go about getting those jobs is completely different than the way you go about getting jobs that are posted. Okay, so there's two different worlds, the posted job market and the hidden job market. Which has the most jobs? The hidden job market. Which has the better jobs? The hidden job market. So it should be a priority for all job seekers to learn as much as you can about the hidden job market. A lot of people know about it, but they know about it later on in their careers. Young people are not immediately exposed to this, so it's a problem. Okay, now I've covered this many, many times. I'm really repeating myself because I've done that very often. I do it so that people get exposed to this, because this is very important. If you're only looking in the posted job market, you're really handicapping yourself. So learn all you can about that. Now, here's something interesting. So where the unposted jobs come from, most hires happen through internal promotions or transfers. So that has nothing to do with recruiters, okay? Usually you don't have recruiters in the process for this. Referrals, employee to manager. Yep, no recruiters in that process too. Direct outreach, someone contacts the company first. Now, who do you think they contact? Do you think they contact recruiters? Wrong. They contact managers, the hiring managers, the managers of departments that have the power to create a job and hire you. That's who they contact. Managers hiring opportunistically when they meet a strong candidate. Same thing. No recruiters in that part of the process either. Roles that are approved but never formally advertised. Once again, that does not read recruiters too, because recruiters, what their job is their job is to go out and find qualified candidates. They're given a list of requirements. They're told, go out, find me like 10 candidates that meet all of these requirements. That's your job. That's how you get paid. Okay? They don't make the decision on who gets the job. They're just given that particular part of it. Post the job, create the document, the listing, get it posted on different places that will get attention. Okay? That kind of thing. So in other words, the job existed, the posting never did. Okay. So I could go on and on about this kind of stuff. What might be interesting is to have more of a session here. So why is it that most young people, at least in my experience, don't seem to be aware of the hidden job market, or if they are aware of it in the sense that they've heard the term, they think it's some big conspiracy. It's only for elites, something like that. It's caused by corruption. Why is that a thing? Why do a lot of young people think this? I'm going to get to questions in just a moment. I just want to see what it says for this. Yeah, this is actually a very real pattern, and not because young people are dumb or cynical. It's because their mental model of how jobs work is being trained incorrectly over and over by the systems around them. I absolutely agree. Let's break it down. Their entire upbringing teaches them rules mean fairness means process. So in other words, there's a process for everything. And you could be forgiven for thinking this because that's how school treats everybody. We have a rule for everything. You're supposed to follow the rules. If you do, you get rewarded. If you don't, you get punished, right? And so you come out of school into the real world thinking, okay, there's a process for everything. I just have to follow the rules and I'll be rewarded. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. Because now it's a free-for-all. You can do whatever the hell you want. Nobody is there saying, here's the process. Here's what you do with your life, right? There's a vacuum there. Okay, so that model works in school, right? Institutions benefit from not correcting this belief. Absolutely. Have you ever been exploited? Do you know what being exploited feels like? Being lied to? They hire you, they pay you peanuts, they treat you like crap, they work you to death, and you get no reward for it. Anyone ever felt that before? Yeah, that's very intentional. And I know what I'm talking about here. Okay, so schools, career centers, and job boards all reinforce the same fiction. Apply online, tailor your resume, track your applications, and network, but defined vaguely and safely. Why? Because it scales, it's legally clean, it's defensible, it doesn't require teaching about power dynamics. I wouldn't have said that, but sure. Saying most jobs are filled before posting would force institutions to admit their advice doesn't map to reality. Exactly. Take note if you've never heard this before, and I encourage everyone to go out and do their own research here. Their placement stats are misleading. Bingo. And their process doesn't actually control outcomes. Exactly. Have you ever wondered how some recruiters, not all, but some, are so mind-numbingly incompetent? Have you ever wondered how they can possibly choose the people that work at a company? Like, everyone that gets into that company has to go through these people? You would think, like, man, that would result in the most dysfunctional bunch of idiots. And you're correct. You're absolutely correct on that. And the reality is that they don't. Now we know. So instead, the system teaches procedure, not leverage. So the bottom line is I'd recommend everybody to learn all you can about the hidden job market. Step into that world. It's extremely empowering for you. If you learn what skills and what techniques are actually rewarded in this world for legitimate reasons, and you learn some of those skills and you foster some of those abilities, you will go far. You will go far. And it's not because of some conspiracy or some corruption. It's because you have real life skills that are useful, that generate results. Okay, let's get back to questions, because this is primarily a Q&A. So if you've got questions, you're wondering about stuff, get in the chat, ask me a question, and we can learn together. Okay, Alex McFark. Alex M. Fark. Like an M. Farction. I work in IT in Canada. Oh, you're Canadian. That's a severe handicap, I'm afraid. I hate people from Canada. I can't abide them. And if I never see anyone from Canada ever again, it'll be too soon. If I work in IT in Canada and I was recently terminated without cause, oh, that sucks. I'm very sorry to hear that. No performance talks or anything beforehand. Yeah, unfortunately that happens. Sometimes it can be because the company is just in a bad way. Business is bad, and that can be one reason for that. Alex says, I was told I'm not a good fit, despite working there for almost 3 years, receiving a raise and being promoted. How do I explain why I left this job in future interviews? Okay. Excellent question, Alex. You're awesome. Let's get into it. Okay. So first of all, about being not a good fit. That's obviously bullshit, and I think you know it, right? If you've been there for 3 years, it's been going relatively smoothly for 3 years. Obviously, you're a fit. If you weren't a fit, you wouldn't have lasted 3 months, okay? So that's what's going on with that comment. That's not the reason why you were let go, okay? Now, how do I explain why I left this job in future interviews? It's very simple. You say, I was laid off. If you're terminated without cause, by definition, that's your reason. You were laid off, which is the more layman's term for it. And it's perfectly okay to say that. Now, if you were laid off with other people at the same time, like they were downsizing, they cut 10% of their workforce or something, so it wasn't just you being laid off, it was like several other people, say that, because that's further evidence that there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's not because you were terminated because of anything wrong with you, right? You see, the thing is, let's pretend that you were hired at an organization and they just didn't like you. They figured it wasn't really working with you for some reason, okay? Let's just pretend that. They could terminate you without cause. They could put that as an official reason for why you were leaving the company. They could claim that, we've determined our staffing requirements based on our financial performance, based on our risk assessment and our business strategy, and we've concluded we've got one too many people in this department, so unfortunately we're laying you off, right? Were you really terminated without cause? No, you were terminated for cause. They didn't like you, but they stated as the official reason that it was without cause, okay? So it is possible to get that situation, right? The reason why I mention this is because when you then tell recruiters or hiring managers or whatever, as you interview for jobs, you say, they say, why were you let go from your last job? Why did you leave your last job? You say, oh, I was terminated without cause. They go, well, assuming that's true, okay, because we don't know, you could be lying to us, I suppose. Assuming that's true, it could be like a situation where you were actually terminated for cause, but for whatever political reason, whatever reasons of expediency, they officially said it was without cause, just to reduce the drama, right? So we don't know. It could have been that, right? But if you say, no, I was terminated without cause, I was laid off, me and a bunch of other people all at the same time from my work group or my division, right? Then it's like, okay, so that's probably truly you were let go without cause. That was a true layoff. Okay, so that's what I would do. If there were people with you, I would say that too. That really helps. Alex says, I guess the follow-up would be if I was laid off, I should have a reference. I'm afraid to ask and use their reference because, in my opinion, they must have had something against me. Okay, now here's the deal. If you're thinking specifically of like the manager, like your boss, okay, then you may have a point. You don't really know exactly what went on there. Here's a couple of things you can do. First of all, to see if you can get the manager. If that's what's expected of you, that's what you're going for, it would reduce questions and encourage people to believe you when you believe your story. If you said, here's the reference of my previous boss, right? Now, what I would do is after you've left the company, which I believe is now, you're all done, call your old boss, okay? See if they'll take your call, first of all, like hopefully they will. And then say, listen, I would very much like to use you as a reference if I could. Do you feel that you're able to give me a good reference if I were to do this? Okay, like something like that. And then just let them talk, right? Don't put like all kinds of social pressure on them for them to say yes. Just say, I was thinking of using you as a reference. If we did this, if I were to do it, do you feel that you could give me a good reference if I were to do this? So, they have an opportunity to say like, well, I don't think that's a good idea, or, something like that, right? And say, so then okay, this person, you don't want to use them as a reference. They might not say good things about you. If you really want to use them, you can try that. That sometimes helps. Alternatively, you might not be able to use the boss, but maybe you could use the coworkers, right? Maybe one or two of your coworkers you got along with, hopefully, at least enough to give you a good reference. Do the same thing with them. Call them up, say, would I be able to use you? Do you feel you could give me a good reference? And see what they say, and if they say, sure, yeah, not a problem. I mean, and you don't doubt them, you could try that. And if they ask you, do we have permission to contact your previous boss? You could say yes, but I'm not sure if, I'm not sure of the quality of the reference they would give me because we had some personal differences. So I'm not sure really what's going on with that individual. Something like that, like, it was a very strained personal relationship. I'm not sure if that will enter into it for them, but here's their number kind of thing. If they've given you permission, right? Or you could say, well, I would, but I did ask them if I could use them as a reference, and they said because of the layoffs, it might not be a good idea. That's what they said. So for that reason, I have to respect that. You know what I mean? Like you can do these things. So I'm not sure if this gives you some options here to salvage like a reference from all this. Okay, there's a few things you can try anyway. Okay, but yeah, like if they have something against you, the goal here is to like just get away from these people and move on with your life. You know what I'm saying? You need to do what's best for you, and if you leave these people behind, I'm sure you agree it's a good thing. You know what I mean? If you think there might have been something going on, but you don't know, it's like, you're gone. You don't have to worry about this crap anymore. Onwards and upwards. Some guy from the internet, some guy from the internet says, last time I got laid off, the excuse I got was I wasn't active enough in the meetings. But in reality, the company just found someone cheaper. Also, I solved 3 years of tech debt for them. Yeah, they're not going to, like, this is the thing. This is the thing that is like your first life lesson in the real world, is that people are not honest, especially about sensitive, touchy kind of things. The only time they might be honest is if it really doesn't matter at all to them. There's no way what they say could ever come back and complicate their life or inconvenience them in any way, right? The moment that, it's something that if they say a certain thing, it could be bad for them in the sense that you might get upset, or they might hear about it again and again, they're going to not be honest. They're going to say whatever is the most convenient. We see that all the time in hiring. Almost everything that comes out of a lot of recruiters' mouths is a lie. It's a lie of convenience. The reason why they're not honest is mostly to make things easier for themselves, which I can understand up to a point, but most young people really are not prepared for that. Other things they just can't be honest about. They would like to, but they can't be. In the same way that someone says, so, listen, I need you to give me your credit card number, and then, I can do this thing. You're going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that, right? You're not wanting to be a jerk, but, sorry, that's personal, that's confidential. I simply can't give you that. It's not that I'm trying to be a jackass and frustrate your plans. It's just that I can't, right? So a lot of recruiters are in that situation, But then on top of that, they do really make things worse by being dishonest about almost everything, every part of the communication with candidates. And ghosting is like the ultimate sort of, eventuality of that. But hey, don't get me wrong. I'm a former CEO, so if you want to talk not being able to tell the truth, guilty as charged. It's just the nature of the role. You just can't. Alex says, I do have references from people I helped trained, but not the boss, as I didn't ask. I can follow up and see with them. I'm still connected on LinkedIn. Yeah, listen, like, it's up to you. I mean, you gauge the situation. It really comes down to how it feels, because you don't actually know. And the only other thing you can do is just ask them and then give them a clear out. You know, like, you could even say, do you think this is a good idea or more trouble than it's worth? Something like that. I mean, that's like a total out. So if they were reluctant in any way, there's their like opt out. They could say, yeah, it's probably more trouble than it's worth, unfortunately, but like, listen, I wish you the best. You know, something like that. I mean, anybody that then says, no, you should, you give me as a reference, and then they badmouth you, it's like, that's just, you don't need me to tell you. That's highly unprofessional and highly unethical. So, you know, and you got to wonder, I mean, someone that would do something like that probably has a screw loose. DV-39, my favorite aircraft carrier, says, hi, Bill. Sorry I just jumped in. Lately, I've been applying to some positions, adapting my CV language and keywords to the job posting, but I still get rejected. How can I get past to ATS systems? Well, basically what I recommend, and some people won't like this, is I recommend you use AI to do all the heavy lifting for customizing your resume. I mean, ChatGPT was the perfect example, Like, you've got your box down here, right, at the bottom. You say, here is the job listing I'm applying to, and you paste in the entire text of the job listing. Then you say, here is a master version of my resume. Okay, you paste it right in this box here, right? Okay, and then you say, I would like you to take the master version of my resume. I'd like you to create a new version of it that is adapted to maximize my chances of getting the job that I just posted, right? Okay. You could give it specific instructions beyond that and really go into detail, or you could just say, just make me like a kick-ass resume that, is a version of my resume that maximizes my chances of getting a callback. And you could say, like, specifically to get through an ATS filter, something like that, right? So you've got a machine fighting a machine in a way. That's what I recommend. Not only is it very, very quick to do this, you also have to proofread, by the way, but apart from that, it's very quick. It's also pretty effective. Okay, so that's what I would say. That's really what you have to do. You can then, as I said, you can specify. You can say, I want you to pay particular attention to the language they're using in the job posting and make sure that all the lingo is there. I want you to pay particular attention to not just the stated posted requirements that they've said they're looking for, but also the things that one would expect them to be looking for in hiring for this position, right? So there's a bunch of unstated things, special skills, special abilities, experiences that you would want to show, things like that. I want you to really be tuned into that stuff too. You could even do the intermediary step, which I know that Abby from the YouTube channel Life Work Balance, she recommends quite a lot. We do live streams, me and her, like every 2 weeks on this channel. And she says, like, okay, now that you know what job I'm applying for, what are the 10 or the 20 most important skills and accomplishments and traits that are sought after for people in that position, right? So, like, it's not necessarily stated in the job posting, but you're going to say you've got those if you can, right? You're going to draw attention to the fact you have all those things. Or at least you're going to speak to them. That doesn't mean that you have the requirement outright, but you might partially have it, right? Like, you don't have quite as much experience as they're looking for, but you do have some. So you're going to put that front row center. And the point is saying, like, listen, the experience requirement is not going to be a problem, okay? I don't have quite as much as you were asking for, but it's okay. I know what I'm doing, that kind of thing. Hopefully that makes sense. You're welcome, Alex. DV39 continues, even using ChatGPT to review the format if ATS friendly is not really working. Okay. I have relevant experience and skills for those positions, but still no calls back. Listen, there's many other things you need to do in a job search campaign also. Posted jobs in particular is a numbers game. You have to apply to many jobs to get bites, right? They also have to be valid jobs. They can't obviously be fake jobs and obsolete jobs and things like this, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on there. Bottom line is go to hundreds and hundreds of jobs and do this, right? You're not going to get a call. Most people are not going to get a call back applying to 100 jobs. There are some exceptions to that, but a lot of people will not get callbacks for that many. You have to go to 1,000 jobs and then you'll get like a handful of callbacks. At least depending on what industry you're in, depending on what your situation is. That's not unusual, okay? The good news is you can do this, and apply I don't know how, many times in a day. If you're using the AI thing and you're customizing, you could easily do 50 jobs in one day, easily, probably more, right? If you almost do it like an assembly line, right? So that's what some people are doing. That's why it's so highly competitive. That's why you kind of need to match that to achieve reasonable results. Okay? The other thing is, like we were talking about first thing in this live stream, is the vast majority of jobs, 85% of them, are not in the posted job market. They're in the hidden job market. So for God's sake, don't ignore the hidden job market. Learn all you can about it and do the stuff you do in the hidden job market to get those jobs. Even the basic things like direct outreach, start doing that stuff if you're not doing it already. Okay, that will greatly enhance your ability to get callbacks. Okay, so learn all you can about that. Alex says, but also, why don't you like Canadians? Can't abide them. Worthless bastards to a man. It's because I am Canadian. I thought that was obvious. So it was a little joke there. Not as successful as I would have liked, but that's where that was coming from. DV39 says, thanks, Bill. Is still relevant the rule of the one-page CV? I don't think that ever was a rule. Traditionally, your resume would be a page and a half, right? Like approximately, between 1 and 2 pages. You can get 3-page resumes. They're rare, and I don't recommend it. But, a page and a half is about average. 1 page is, I don't know. I don't think that's, I know some people talk about it, but honestly, I don't think that's something you need to worry about. Unless you're like just starting out, you've got like nothing at all to put on there. I would do like a page and a half. Say you've had one career job, okay? You've got maybe some education, and then you've got one career job, maybe 3 years experience or something. It's like, okay, by the time you list your education and, your summary and your one job, if you go into your duties and then you go into a couple of major accomplishments that you might have had there, like major as a relative term here, like that pretty much takes you over a page, So page and a half is good, for most people. That's what I'd say. I have a couple of years of experience now, and I'm struggling to fit everything in just 1 page, even using bullet. Yeah, so a page and a half is fine. Between 1 and 2 pages is traditional, right? So that's what I'm assuming will be appropriate for most people. And when you say CV, I'm translating that as the North American version. You see, like in North America, certainly, the document that you use that has work experience on is called a resume. They use the term CV, curriculum vitae, for an academic resume. That's where you're putting like published papers and things like that, that sort of stuff. So it's more of an academic sort of summary sheet. But yeah, potato. I am just not able to babble like a monkey today, like I usually do. I'm finding it. I'm getting my jaw starting to hurt. talking so much for so long. Usually I don't get that. Must be because I'm gradually losing my hair. That's the only explanation. But I'm looking great, making it look good. That's the whole point. People will be so blinded by the shine off my head that they'll be coming back. We were talking about this, right? This was the question. Why is it that young people, at least in my experience, don't seem to be aware of the hidden job market? Or if they're aware of it in the sense that they've heard the term, they think it's a big conspiracy, like it's only for elites or something like that, caused by corruption. Why is that a thing? Why do a lot of young people think this? We were going through this. Their entire upbringing teaches them rules lead to fairness, leads to process. And in the real world, you don't have a process for your life. There are no rules that you must follow other than obeying the law of the land. Apart from that, it's a free-for-all. That's why people just diverge. They go different ways. There's many ways of achieving your goals, and there's many goals. So there is no structure. You're set adrift. That's the first thing. Not everything is done within a structure where somebody's saying, here's our process. You can do whatever you want in life. People get jobs, a variety of different ways, right? Institutions benefit from not correcting this belief. Absolutely. They want to exploit you. They want to influence you. And they've got you right where they want you when you are just blindly believing them whenever they say something, when you take them at their word. Most of what they're saying is a lie, an intentional lie to influence you. I'm not one for conspiracy theories. I normally don't say this kind of stuff, but it's true. This is something that all young people have to learn for yourselves, unfortunately, and usually you learn this by getting burned, by getting exploited when you're first starting out, in your 20s or whatever. So we were here. Hidden sounds like illicit to people raised on transparency ideals, meaning school. Yeah, younger generations were explicitly taught transparency is good, back channels is bad. Fairness equals everyone sees the same opportunity. Now, the reality is that everyone has the same opportunity, but some people are availing themselves of the opportunity and some people aren't. Sometimes that's done because some people just aren't aware the opportunity is there and they never thought to do it, right? Whereas some people have been shown what that looks like. Other people, they just shy away from doing that kind of thing, and unfortunately, they're therefore not rewarded for it. So when they hear most jobs aren't posted, they don't interpret it as managers hire through trusted signals to reduce risk, which is in fact what they do. They interpret it as this is rigged, this is nepotism, this is corruption. Yeah, and that really seems to be my impression talking about this stuff on this YouTube channel. That's the impression I've got from a lot of young people. That's kind of the reaction that's almost universal. That's a moral framing error, not an intelligence problem. Yeah, it's because you haven't been shown how stuff actually works, because school doesn't, at least in my experience, it doesn't show you that. It doesn't teach you that. So absolutely. DV39 says, yes, sorry, CV is more commonly used in Europe. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In the EU, in Europe, that's the term that they use for what in North America they call a resume. So, yeah. Constantin is here. Hey, Constantin, I recognize your name. Constantin says, how can you prove that the hidden job market does actually exist? Well, considering every job I've had in the last 15, 20 years, it certainly has been in the hidden job market. How do I prove that to you? I'm here. I exist. I have a printer, I've made money. So yeah, it's there. Now, what I was actually doing with showing you ChatGPT, all this business, was to try and show to you that this is not my opinion. This is not coming from me. This is an open secret. Most people know this, right? I started off by saying of all the jobs out there, how many of them are posted that I could actually see? And then it says, well, about 85% of them are never posted at all, right? The 85% is called the hidden job market. This is where they come from. This is what they are. right? Okay, it's talking about it, right? So I was saying, well, why is it that young people don't know of this? You know, they assume you're making it up. They assume it's not a thing. You know, where's that coming from? And the bottom line is that they're not taught about it. So, you know, when they get out in the real world and they hear about this, their first reaction is to go bullshit because they've never been taught about it, right? Now, I mean, I don't know how to. It's like saying, how do I prove to you that Canada exists? I don't know if I can. You know, I mean, I'm in Canada, but how do I prove to you that that isn't a big lie? You know, I don't know. Like if you leave your house and walk north, if you're in the U.S., you will probably get to Canada eventually. You know, other than that, I don't know how to prove it to you. So I'm just encouraging you to do all you can. Open your eyes, learn all you can about it. Try some of the stuff that people say, you know, this is how it works and this is where it is and this is how you can get it. Try that stuff and see for yourself, you know. Open your eyes. Maybe there's members of your family that have gotten a job through some other means than applying cold to a job posting. You know what I mean? Have they ever gotten a job that, you know, like by talking to a manager or a boss, you know, where they didn't post the job publicly, but then they hired your family member or something like that? If that's happened, then that's the hidden job market. That's one element of it, you know? So there you go. So that's my answer to that. That's a good question. That's basically what I'm here to try and answer through everything I'm doing. And in fact, like my courses, yes, I'm coming back to my courses again. But, you know, this thing, for example, my Get Hired course, like that teaches you how to get hired in the posted market and in the hidden market. And that's the real value, because all the stuff of how to get hired in the hidden job market that I would recommend are all there. And I've never really covered all that stuff in my free YouTube videos because it's hard. There's a lot of principles all stacked on top of each other, and to go through them takes hours and hours. So that's why I put it into a course instead of a video. Okay, DV39 says, do you have any suggestions on where to start cold reaching out to people within companies I'm interested in? Only LinkedIn comes to my mind now. You don't really have to go any further afield than LinkedIn. That's the only tool you need. That and Google Maps. You know, but the thing is, LinkedIn is a tool. And unless you know how to use it properly, it's not going to produce the desired results. So a lot of people, for a start, they think that, okay, jobs, LinkedIn, contacting people, I should reach out, I should contact recruiters. Wrong. Recruiters deal with posted jobs. That's their whole job. They write up posted jobs into a job posting. They get it publicized. They get it like posted and publicized on the internet. They promote it, right? Whoops. They, they filter the applicants that send in like resumes and applications. They schedule interviews with them, etc. That's all the posted market, right? They behave as like assistants. You know, they do the grunt work in that process. They don't actually choose which candidate gets hired. They just do the administrative grunt work for the process. The person who does decide is the hiring manager. They're the one that's actually in control. They're the ones that created the job in most cases. Right? So how should you use LinkedIn to reach out to people? Well, the first thing is to recognize that I'm going to ignore recruiters. I'm going to go to hiring managers, because hiring managers are the ones that create the job. They know of a job. The job right now exists in a hiring manager's head. They've said, you know, I've crunched the numbers. I've looked at our operations. I've decided we need 2 more employees in this department, 1 more employee in that department. I'm going to discuss it next week with the heads of department. And then I think this is what we need to do. We've already appropriated some money for that to happen. We've checked it. It all makes sense. That's my plan to expand. And my interest also, apart from the production, is I'm also going to signal this to investors to show that, hey, you know, things are happening. We've got news. We have a steady stream of news, how we're growing, how we're doing new things, and we're growing these departments, we're expanding. That's another signal that we're doing well. And my job is to make sure that we're doing well, so you're going to be sure that I will make sure that's mentioned, right? So the job exists in that person's head. They're a hiring manager. Now, imagine if you contacted them right at that moment and said, hey, I'm a perfectly qualified whatever, I solved this problem. I know of your company. I know you guys do great work in this area. I live nearby. Listen, if ever you're hiring, please let me know because I'd like to work for you. That's all. Have a great day. Imagine if you landed in that person's lap. They would say, hey, okay, listen, this is great because maybe I don't need to hire an external recruitment agency or HR, company to post this job and, promote it and then filter applicants and then do screening interviews. I'm going to check out this candidate. They seem to be fine. What's the first thing that I did? I went and looked at their profile because that's the first thing anyone does when they get a message from someone. And, no red flags. They seem to be the type of person we're looking for. They got the right experience. They got the right education. And they certainly seem to have the initiative and they seem to understand professional communication. They're very persuasive. They seem to be charismatic because I want to respond to them favorably. That's something in their favor. So I'm going to check out this person because that might make my life a whole lot easier. The odds that I would prefer a stranger who hasn't expressed any interest in the role really and hasn't gone above and beyond anything, the odds of me choosing them over this person are pretty remote. You know what I mean? This person has a lot more going for them right now than a job applicant. So I'm going to check them out first. Imagine if you contacted them and said that right at that moment, right? They'd probably look into you. They'd say, okay, I'm going to look at you first before I go to all the trouble of doing this the default way, right? So that's the idea of things like direct outreach. That's the mechanism, okay? You need to know what to say. You need to know who to say it to. You need to communicate professionally. You need to have certain other things like your LinkedIn profile sharp and looking professional, no red flags. If your LinkedIn picture, like profile picture, is like you with 4 other people all partying, all drunk, it's probably not going to achieve the desired result, right? So there's a few assumptions in there. That's not that I'm always trying to talk about my course, but that's a lot of stuff I go into in the course, like all the things you've got to set up to make sure that you're not shooting yourself in the foot by not doing something or doing something bad. Right? So that's the principle. Now you can learn all about that. You don't need me to teach you everything about it. For example, you can go here and say, here. Okay, so regarding the hidden job market, if I wanted to use LinkedIn as a tool to tap the hidden job market and get hired, who do I contact and what do I say? Okay, so that's just, I don't know, a general question to get you get you started down this road. Okay, let's see what it says. Who do you contact on LinkedIn? Okay, primary target. The hiring manager is for the function you want. Okay, that's definitely one possible target. Secondary target, their boss. Yes, this is kind of like what I do. I've taught students in university to do this and always to go to the executives because they're the ones that can hire you on the spot. They're the ones that are looking for talent. And counterintuitively, they actually have more time to answer queries like this than a functional manager at the mid-level. Okay, strong individual contributors to the team. Yeah, you could, that's bad. But who not to contact? Recruiters, HR generalists, and talent I don't know what a talent partner is, but basically one of these things, I assume, right? They don't control hiring, they manage the process, right? So anyway, you can go on, it's blah, blah, blah. You can go on about this stuff, but that's the idea, okay? So I'm trying to actively encourage people to step into this world. It's to your advantage to do it. Okay, I've done a video on this channel about 4 months ago. I've mentioned it before. It's called How I Would Get a Job. I did it about 4 months ago. Go check that out. It's 45-minute long video, but I go through 11 different methods of getting a job. So some may appeal to you, some might not. But a good job search campaign, doesn't have just one thing that you're doing. It has 2, maybe 3, So if you're applying to post to jobs, that's great. You don't have to stop. Tack this on, say direct outreach, in the hidden market using LinkedIn. And then you have many other methods to choose from going beyond that. So check out that video. That might give you some ideas. And do all you can to research these things. Don't just use ChatGPT. Do all kinds of other research on the internet, but keep one thing in mind. Recruiters deal with posted jobs and posted jobs only. Okay? You can verify that if you'd like, but that being said, they're not the authority on the hidden job market because they don't deal with the hidden job market. So just keep that in mind. It's hard for a recruiter to tell you that for 85% of the jobs out there, you don't go through them. You don't need them. You don't need their approval. You don't need their permission. You don't need their blessing. They have nothing to do with that process. And they are not involved in it at all for you. So I've noticed some people that are recruiters or ex-recruiters, not all of them, but a few of them, they kind of give the impression that they're the gatekeepers for everything. They're not. But don't take my word for it. Go figure that out for yourself. Go try stuff. Okay. Where were we here? So that was DV39. Constantin says, okay, I'm going to try it. Thanks. Constantin says, actually, I've asked my hairdresser today if she have any clients who can offer a job, and she's given me some context. Does it fall into the hidden job market basket? Yes, but it's not. You see, the hidden market is like many different things. There's many, many ways in, as evidenced by the fact that I was just telling you about a video I did that has 11 methods of getting a job. It's not just one thing. There's many, many things under that umbrella, right? Now, this is one of them where you ask around to the people you already know, okay? That is a method. It's one of the worst methods because the odds are, unless you know a billion people personally, the odds are is that in your network, there isn't somebody that's looking for a job that's suited for you right this moment. You know what I'm saying? That's why you have to go outside of that. If you're unemployed now, you need a job now, you're looking for someone who's hiring now, what are the odds that the people that you know that you're relatively close to, one of those is hiring right now, or one of them knows of somebody hiring someone exactly like you right now? That's a tall order, okay? But with things like direct outreach, you can it's like applying to jobs. You can apply for 1,000 jobs. Direct outreach, you can contact 1,000 people with that like little blurb, like that little template message I said earlier. Now the odds of those people, especially if you're going to higher level people, so they're not just speaking for like their little group, they're speaking for their entire company or their entire division of a company, whatever. You know what I mean? The odds go up considerably that right now they're looking for someone just like you. And it makes sense for them to have an exchange with you, right? So yeah, you can start with your hairdresser. Nothing wrong with that, but recognize that's one of the, the odds are is that there's no one in your network right this moment. So you have to go outside of that. Okay, don't just stop there. There's so much more than that. That's like somebody saying, the posted job market. Yeah, I applied for a job once. They didn't get back to me. Therefore, it's all horseshit. That's not the way to get a job. It's like, what would you say to that? You'd probably say, well, you're wrong. You just need to try again quite a few times and something will come along, right? So anyway, there you go. That's DV39. So there's 22 people here. I always suspect that people are more interested in like how to pass job interviews, like how to answer different questions. That's kind of where I found most people are interested. That's the topics. So we can get into that stuff if you want. I find that I'm always I end up talking about the hidden job market, like almost every live stream I do to varying degrees. And while I think it's important, I also recognize that that's not what a lot of people are necessarily looking for. So if you have questions about anything, just let me know and we can talk about whatever is relevant to you. And there you go. I think I browbeat Constantin with that last answer. Anyway, they're all good questions. You guys are awesome. It's Friday, TGIF. It's not Friday the 13th, but we're close. It's Friday the 23rd. So one digit out, you know. I always say TGIF the 13th, but you can't say that today, unfortunately. Let me know if you guys have questions. I will ramp this down if I don't get any more questions in a bit. So speak now or forever hold your peace. Like simply talking about things like salary in a job interview, you know, like that's such a huge topic. You know, like all the different things they could ask you. What's going on there? Why are they asking you that? What are they really trying to do? You know, all this kind of stuff. You know, very, very involved. Even just doing like a video on salary where you cover everything, I've never done. I've done several videos that are like an hour long just talking about salary in job interviews or in the hiring process, put it that way. And, you know, I've never, like I've done an hour video talking about one aspect of it, an hour video talking about other aspects of it. Like I've never actually done a video with everything in it. That would be multiple hours. You know what I mean? You know, big topics. Brad is here. Brad how do you say that? It's got how do you pronounce a word with a 7 in the middle? McNut. Mc7ut. It's like 7 Up, right? I remember when I was a kid, they'd have these commercials on TV for 7 Up, and there was this like big black guy in a white suit with a yellow tie and like a white fedora, which, you know, I've never seen any other capacity in my life. And he'd be drinking 7 Up and he'd have this big deep laugh. 7 Up, you know, that kind of thing. You know, takes me back to my childhood. So congratulations, your name reminded me of that. So you should feel privileged. Always says, always love your channel. You tell it like it is. I do. To my detriment. I sometimes tell it a little bit too much like it is, if you know what I'm saying. And I get the consequences. But that's a luxury I now have. I no longer have a corporate career, and it's great. I can say whatever the hell I want, and I can do it publicly. And my God, that was several years in coming. Constantin says, cheers, Constantin. Thank you for being here. Hopefully I didn't lay it on too thick earlier answering your question. It's all good, my friend, and I wish you the very best. If ever you have questions, come back. Give me your questions. You're asking the right questions, so you're definitely on the right path. Learn all you can. Don't just listen to me. Listen to like get your information from a variety of sources. That's how you validate things. That's how you corroborate things. You know, that's what you need to do. So, I mean, and don't just get it all from YouTube either. Like, you know, diversify the sources of your information. So check out other things out on the internet. Also, get information by trying stuff in real life. You know, like that's probably the best source of information to validate a theory about how things work. You know what I mean? You know, it's hard for someone to tell you you're wrong when either you've seen it with your own eyes or you've done it. You know what I'm saying? Nobody can tell you you're wrong when that's where you're coming from, right? If you've just read it or you've just heard someone say it, then it's a little shakier, you know? Brad says, what's the best way to interview with another company to get a better salary where you're currently working? YouTube picked my screen name. Haha. Oh, okay. Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? That alphanumeric kind of thing. Makes us feel we're a person and not a number, doesn't it? So if I understand your question properly, what's the best way to interview with another company to get a better salary, I guess, than when you're where you're currently working? Well, okay, like you kind of already said, you do it while you've still got your job in the bag, so you don't need to take their offer. You can walk away. That's the best way to do it. A lot of people don't do it like that way. A lot of people wait until they're out of work, then they start looking to see if they can get a job in there, and they're looking for a better salary than what they got last time, right? So, you know what I mean? And that's where it gets harder, because negotiating power comes from having options, right? Now, if you're out of work and you're desperate and you need money and you must get a job now, that doesn't give you a lot of options. You don't have the luxury of waiting or turning down offers, you know what I mean, at that point. So a lot of times you've only got two options: unemployment or take this offer that they're offering, and it's not very good, At least when you're currently working, you have three options. You can quit your job. You have unemployment as an option. You can stay where you are and make whatever you're making, or you could take this option, this alternative, right? So at least you have three options this time instead of two, right? So the more options you get, the more power you have, the more you can pick and choose, and nobody can force you, right? You do what makes sense to you. So the first thing is to try and get as many options as possible, right? So you don't just apply for one job and go to that one interview. You apply to as many as you possibly can, right? And that will give you more options. Now, negotiation is not the same as persuasion. They're two different things, okay? So negotiation is based on you understanding your position. What makes sense for you to do? Like, for example, if they offered you a job for a certain amount of money, does it make sense for you to take it? Can you live the way you want to live with that money, right? Or does it just not make any sense? And if it doesn't make sense, then you can walk away. You don't have to feel bad about walking away. You're like, nope, absolutely not. Sorry, can't do it. You know what I mean? There's no question. There's no emotional wrangling, because it just doesn't make sense. You've worked that out in advance. Also, it ensures that they can't persuade you to take a lower number than you wanted. If you've worked everything out in advance and you know that you must have this minimum, and then your goal is this, it's very specific, right? Anything less than this, you're not going to leave your current job. And any job you do get, it must be over this, or you can't afford to live, right? So having worked those two numbers out in your mind beforehand really helps. And then, for example, let's say they had great opportunities for promotion, and you could get conceivably promoted into your dream job. How much is that worth for you? That's something else you would work out in advance. So when they expect you to take this much, but they claim that there's opportunities to move into this job that you want, does it make sense for you to take? These are not things that you consider on a case-by-case basis as it comes up. These are things that you've worked out in advance. So when you're dealing with them, you can give them a clear answer right there. No, sorry, doesn't work for me. Right? That's the idea. Okay? So that's what negotiation is, right? And then creating multiple options and picking the best one. And it goes very simply and very smoothly, right? It's not about browbeating someone or persuading them to take something that they don't want to take. That's not what it is at all. That's persuasion, that's sales, whatever you want to call it. That's not negotiation. Okay? So negotiation is that process of having options, knowing where you sit, knowing what you need, and, sticking to that, right? I've done videos on negotiation, like how you do it and how it works and all that kind of stuff. So check those out if you want like a more fuller explanation of it. Okay. Now the thing is about your salary thing specifically. It's like people don't just give out money for free. They don't give out money for no reason. There's a market price for these things, and it's that principle that applies right down to the granular level where you are as an individual. So, you know what I'm saying? The other thing is that there's an opportunity cost for you leaving. So if somebody's going to pay you 5% more, that's great. Is it worth the risk of throwing away what you have now, right, to go to something that could potentially not work out for 5% more, right? That's an example of one of the things you'll have worked out ahead of time, right? What are the odds that if that doesn't work out, you'll be able to get another job relatively quickly? Things like this. This is the stuff, this is your like situation. This is all part of your situation that you work out in advance. You understand where you stand, and then it's clear what you'll take and what you won't, right? Okay, so that's negotiation. There's no argument. There's no arguing in negotiation. The negotiations I've done, usually you do it with like over email because they're like, numbers involved and stuff like that. You don't do it all verbally. You do it like with numbers. They send you documents. You sometimes do it with like a lawyer with you. And, the response is, not agreed to, not agreed to, not agreed to, like that kind of stuff. That's all it takes, right? This is what I need. Let me know if and when you can meet that, something like that. Then we can go from here. The whole job offer thing, same kind of thing. One tactic that helps with persuasion that I've covered many times here is if they do give you an offer and you want to try and make a counteroffer. First of all, you've weighed the risks of making a counteroffer because there's always a chance they can rescind it. They can say, nope, sorry, we can't do it, and we're withdrawing the offer to you, right? So now you're not getting anything. That's a real possibility. Usually doesn't happen, but it happens enough that we see that. Right? So one way to persuade people is to say, okay, well, I'm going to give you a bunch of things. Benefits. This is a lot worse than I'm used to getting. Sick days. You're only giving me 5 sick days a year. I'm used to 15, but whatever. Vacation. You're only giving me 1 week. I'm used to 3. I'm currently have 3 weeks in my current job. So I'm taking a step down on all of these. But you know what? For this job, sure. I'll play ball. I like this opportunity. I think it has a lot of potential. So I'll give you this. That's fine. All I need you to do is change this number to this, and then we have a deal. Right? And you send it back. And if they send it back, well, we don't really do that. It's like, okay, not agreed to. I'll get back to you, which everybody loves to hear, which means I'll never get back to you. Like that kind of stuff. So that's how it can help if you're giving things, right? To get something. That's usually a universal thing. But that's persuasion. That's not really negotiation. So anyway, hopefully that's useful. I appreciate you explaining thoroughly. Well, thank you. Wendy M. Thomas, if I'm saying that correct, says, every time I say the stuff you say, it's works most of the time when salary question comes up. Okay, good. I'll take that as a compliment. Yeah, hopefully it does. Like I've done many videos about the salary stuff. So the most obvious is when they say, what are your salary expectations? Right? That's a very popular job interview question. You usually get that. It's a standard question. Then there's also like, what's your current salary, right? Like everybody loves that. Very pointed, probing question, and they rely on a lot of social pressure, especially for young people. You're not on your own turf. You're kind of nervous and, you understand that they're going to ask you questions and you need to answer them. So that gives them license to ask questions that are clearly overstepping what's reasonable, because now they're asking about personal and confidential things, and then they'll ask stuff like this. They'll say, like, how much are you currently making? And, I hate questions like that. It's an overstep. It's like what you do with some third party is none of their business, but they ask it because they can. And often people will just answer and that's to their advantage and not yours. You know, how do you negotiate pay? How do you ask for pay? Like in a promotion, like how do you ask for pay? It's all about what power you have. Now, if there's a real chance you're going to walk away from your job if you don't get a promotion, then they'll consider giving you what you want, right? The problem is they're running under the assumption you're not going to walk away. If you say, I'd like more money, I think it's fair, insert reasoning why I should get more money. They know that 90% of the time when employees say that, if you don't give them more money, nothing changes, they stay and they do their job just like before. So they're prepared to call that bluff. And I remember one of the things I observed when I was younger in companies and stuff, the manager would wait to the point where the employee says, okay, then no problem, I understand. Here's my notice. And then the manager would wait to the notice period to expire, and then the employee leaves. And the first day that they're not at work, the manager calls them at home and says, come on back. Okay, come on. You got your money. Right? They're not prepared to give that by bluff. They need to see proof that they need to give it. Right? That's what I saw over and over and over again. But that was in a certain industry. So I'm not sure if that's across the board, but that was kind of formative for me. So anyway. Okay, last call for questions. Anybody got any questions? We got 20 people here. Speak now or forever hold your peace. In the meantime, once again, like I've done a couple of times, check out this course. If you want all my advice in one place, get my Get Hired course. There's a link in the description box under this live stream. Follow the link. I've got a link to the course, and I've got a link to a video that describes the course, shows you what you get, how it works, all that kind of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that kind of thing. Also, check out this. There's also a link in the description box below to this course. It's called Write Like a Professional, and this is where you learn high-level communication skills. So if you're someone who's interested in learning that, this will help you if you're trying to get a promotion wherever you work. Tacking on communication skills is one of the best things you can do to be seen as somebody that has a lot of potential and that maybe should move upwards. So it'll help you with that. It'll also help you with some of the networking stuff we talked about earlier, and it will help you across the board in your entire career and in life, really. So check that out. Link in the description box below this live stream. And also I have another video that describes that course, how it works, what you get in the spirit of transparency. So good stuff there. A lot of people have taken these. So there you go. If ever you want to learn business, I also have a third one right there, $100 MBA, same thing. Check it out. Okay, I will be back next week. And same time, I'm live on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. These days, I've kind of committed to that for the next few weeks. So I'll be back on Monday. I have a live stream on Monday. The first one is about entrepreneurship. I do one on entrepreneurship on Mondays called Side Hustle Ideas. So if you're interested in doing a side hustle, either because you want to get into learning business or you want to start your own company or you just want another revenue stream, you want to make some money on the side to supplement your income. All those reasons and more, check out that live stream. We talk about entrepreneurship. And I'm back talking about this stuff also on Monday. I have a collaborative live stream with Abby from the YouTube channel Life Work Balance. We answer your questions together, and she is a ex-recruiter. So she's got a certain perspective on things. I've got a certain perspective on things. So you get to hear both of those at the same time, answering questions. Wendy says, I have an interview tonight as a line cook. I work as a dishwasher, but have some experience cooking. Okay, well, just remember that all interviews are basically about your soft skills. I did some videos on this recently. It's not about your qualifications. Your qualifications gets you the interview, right? On paper, you're qualified to do the job. Okay, let's talk. Now, the interview then becomes, do we like you? Do we want to hire you specifically? Do we click as people? How well can you communicate? Do you seem desperate, or do you seem crazy, or do you seem like angry, or do you seem like a person that, we can't work together for whatever reason? That's what the interview is about. It's also about spotting red flags, to do with like, you're a job hopper, or you're someone that's not going to be happy with the pay, or, stuff like that. So they're looking for red flags about that stuff, and they're also assessing who you are as a person, and it really does boil down to likability in large part. So go down to your interview, have a big smile on your face, be super agreeable and accommodating, easygoing, nothing's a problem, whatever you want. Sure. I'm just here to help. I'm just happy to be here. That's kind of the right attitude. And, that's all you can do. And best of luck on your interview, Wendy. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a good weekend. I will see you on Monday. Take care of yourselves, and I wish you all the best.